It's two conscious guys talking, where conscious male leaders come together and have a discussion that is deep, that is nourishing, that allows us to see the illumination of consciousness that's unfolding progressively for men that are waking up in the world, and where you can get insights on your own awakening as a man, and also for amazing women that want to learn more about men's challenges and struggles that have created some of the dysfunction we've seen within men in its society, often called, quote unquote, the patriarchy and other terms. What created it? What is the genesis of it all? What can we do about it today to empower men to be all that they're meant to be and to support the awakening of consciousness for men and women and all? Well, I'm grateful to be here. Hey, dude, how you doing? I had to say it. Just had to say it, girl. I had to say it, 'cause usually it is. It's just guys, and we're just kind of more of a hey, brother, hey, dude kind of vibe. And so we've decided to mix things up today. So I've got a special guest today. And Carol here got guidance to reach out to me after receiving some of my emails and talking about guy stuff and things with guys. And she's she wanted to talk about it given her background with domestic violence, etc. And we had a nice conversation. I'm like, yeah, we should just have you on the show and discuss it there. This would be good information on my podcast. So I was like, this is the perfect time while I'm in between full seasons of got our mental health series coming up, guys, by the way. And for you ladies that like to listen in to help your guys, like that's starting in January 15th in the new year. I'm going to have a bunch of interviews with guys around mental health. So we got that coming up, and we're doing, some extra episodes in between. So anyway, Carol, it's great to be with you today. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, thank you, Daniel, for having me. And I'm not sure that I'm a dude, but hey, you know what? Let's just have a great conversation.
Yeah. I get the Hey Jude vibe coming. Hey Jude. Okay. All right.
I'll leave the singing to you.
Right. Oh, I don't know. That might be dangerous. I'm one of those people. People are like, hey, you sound pretty good. You're okay, and then all of a sudden they hear me sing again. They're like, wait a minute, that's awful. Quit singing. Like, it depends on what I'm singing. I'm very much like the average person with the singing. It's like all over the place. Anyway, so Carol, yeah, you worked again with domestic violence and family violence for a long time, and you saw a lot of different things with families and with couples and men, and that's why I've had you come onto the show today. I think one of the things that is the typical first thought about domestic violence is that it happens to women. Of course it happens to women. And I don't think there's any real acknowledgement that's that strong at all. Very, very minimal that it happens to men too, and so I don't even know what the stats are on that. I think all the stats are misleading. Like the amount of people that would report, for men that, hey, my wife's, abusing me physically, mentally, emotionally, or whatever, all those things, like are going to be really low because the whole thing with the guys is I can't show weakness. I can't show vulnerability. I take care of things on my own. I don't go for help. Like, in the collective, for sure, that's still a dominant pattern. And so the underreporting is going to be huge, but I don't know, like you're the one that's worked in this field. Like, isn't it true? It's way, like it doesn't get enough press when it's happening more than we realize. Like I told you, Carol, like pretty much the most of the like one of the main domestic violence cases I knew was a wife beating up her husband when I was growing up. Like the one I knew about, like, yeah, so and so beat him up again, hit him with the frying pan again, and we're always I'm like, whoa, and yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Anyway, I'll let you speak to it, but it's it's an underreported thing, I would say. Would you not agree? You're the expert on this.
Well, I would agree with you that it is underreported. It's underreported for the reasons that you have mentioned.
Mhm.
Men a lot of times don't even realize that what they are experiencing in a relationship is abusive behavior. And
Mhm.
again, men generally don't step forward to report because society says, well, you're a man, you should be able to deal with it. You know, why are you calling? And
Mhm.
what discovered when you look at men who do call, say if they're calling a police department, they're dialing 911. I mean, they're told, well, you're a man, go away and deal with it. You're a man,
Mhm.
it couldn't be happening to you.
Mhm.
And therefore, men often are reluctant to report. Or they're also, if they step forward and report, they're afraid that they will lose their children. So there's
Mhm.
a whole variety of issues around why men don't step forward. And in a lot of cases, too, men are not educated around what really is family violence, what constitutes family violence, what constitutes abuse. I mean, more stats are coming out, and that's a really great thing. But those stats, too, it depends where they're gathered from,
Mhm. Mhm.
as to if police are reporting, well, police are reporting the stats that they have. Are they accurate? It's again, you look at things around false allegations. So what is being reported? So to me, there's a lot of work around what are the correct stats. And now we know that men as well as women are impacted by, whether we say domestic violence, whether we say family violence.
Mhm. Mhm.
Both both can be the recipients of abuse, and both can be the perpetrators.
Right.
So really, for me, is what are we doing as a society to help men cope with that, with family conflict, to understand, what it is, and
Mhm.
what can they do for themselves, and what can they do to help their children. And, as
Mhm.
you've said, I've worked in the field for a good number of years, and I am happy that there are services for women and families. Absolutely happy. But again, what have we done on the other side? Virtually nothing.
Mhm.
Virtually
Mhm.
nothing. And I
Mhm.
look at that and say, but also ask the question. So if there is a man who is fleeing domestic violence and he has children, or we have no services for him, what does that really, where does that leave the children? Are they not as important as the children over on this side?
Mhm.
It makes no sense. And, I was just having a conversation with someone in regards to services for families who are in conflict or there's domestic violence. Said, what kind of services do we have that are preventative services versus intervention? Yes, you may need some intervention, but what are we doing around preventative services? What are we doing at the onset versus, you know, kind of at the end of the road?
Mhm.
What are we doing to help individuals? So it is so timely. I think in the USA there are more services for men than there are in Canada.
Yeah,
There are
probably. I would.
there are some
Mhm.
programs, and there are shelter programs, and then there are other services as well that are available in essence for perpetrators. I know there's a really great program in Kansas, and that is for both men and women who have been charged with, say, with assault in a domestic situation. So there is and there are a few services, but really and truly, men too need to be supported. And from my perspective, I think over the last 50 or 60 years, maybe even longer, it's become very confusing for men around really who are they and the role that they play in a family.
Mm-hmm.
And what supports are there for them, you know, if they have whatever the behaviors they might have, what supports are available.
Right. Well, let's
Yeah.
get into that. So let's say there's, because again, if we even help one person, through this podcast, that's always my goal. Like, can we help even one person? We help thousands or more than that. That's great. But like, can we help one person? So let's say someone's listening and they're like, I'm that guy. I'm the guy getting beat up. I have no idea what to do about it. And most of the listeners probably are more so in the US than Canada or somewhere else in the world, but there are people listening anywhere, around the world to this podcast. So what can a man do that's getting the frying pan in the face, or I don't even know what the most common abuses are, like when it comes to physical, mental, emotional. I mean, I know to a degree. My background is clinical psychology, and I used to work in that field, but I didn't specialize in this sort of stuff. So, but if someone is being abused, first of all, maybe it'd be even good to break down what is the abuse. Maybe because maybe some of the guys don't know, or maybe some of the ladies don't even know, like that when they hear something like, is that abuse? Like maybe a guy does open up to a woman outside of his marriage, like, yeah, so my wife's doing blah blah blah, and you're kind of like, oh, that's not good. But you don't, maybe like another man's brain or woman's brain in society doesn't think of it as abuse. They're just like, oh yeah, they shouldn't do that. But they don't look at it as like, oh, this is actually a real situation, and it could theoretically become dangerous. I know it doesn't happen that often, but men could be seriously hurt. Men could end up dying. I mean, it's possible, right? So, and it's just not right. So educate us. Like, what are some of the common? Maybe we should even start with like, what are the common abuses that we see? What are some of the signs of the abuse? And then we'll get into more like what to do about it. So let's start there. What are some of the signs?
So first of all, when you look at abuse, yes, there's physical, there's mental, there's emotional, psychological, there's spiritual abuse, there's financial abuse, there's sexual abuse. And those kind of are the bowl, and there can be others. I mean, there's technology abuse, there's cyber cyber abuse. So there's many different ways. And when we're looking at signs of abuse in a partnership or in an intimate relationship, controlling behaviors by one partner over the other, is the one partner needing to know where the other partner is at all times, and they're constantly texting or phoning or sending emails. There is also the type of language that is used. So if you're constantly calling a partner, well, you're just so stupid, or you're fat, or you should be this kind of shape, it's degrading, continuous degrading comments. And that, well, you're not good enough, you're not cooking this meal right, or you're not cleaning the house right, or you're not giving me money. And that is one from financial, is withholding means to, say, the other partner being able to buy food or clothing, or just things like that. And when it comes to sexual abuse, when you're in a relationship, both of you still need to consent to being intimate, to having that sexual relationship. And what is happening in the sexual relationship as well. I mean, are you being choked? things like that wouldn't really be normal. So it's to be aware of that. And in essence, too, how are you feeling? What's going on for you when someone else is degrading you or, playing on your emotions. And here's something too. Sometimes one partner knows that if they do something, that will make the other person really angry, and then that person will blow up. So it's that whole dynamic too of power and control, and that's huge. That is
Mm-hmm.
huge. That is played out in so many different ways. It could be played out through jealousy, by from one partner to the other. It can be in stalking from what is watching one person's one partner's movements all the time. And another way to look at that in a relationship is if you're beginning to feel isolated, if one partner is just saying, well, there's no more, you can't see your mom and dad, you can't see your family, and you begin to isolate yourself, that's also abusive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's those are just some of the things.
Right.
And for men, because sometimes men are used to more of what, not rougher, but their communication styles are, say, they're different because masculine and feminine are.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Mm-hmm.
different.
Right.
So men won't really recognize, or perhaps sometimes they don't stop to recognize that the behaviors that are being exhibited towards them are they're abusive. I know of a situation where a man was continuously told he was less than a father.
Mm-hmm.
Just didn't have what it took to be a father. You can't father like that, and it just continuously berating him for who he was.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly his self-esteem became eroded. And he, it's finally was like, well, I feel worthless.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
No, I can't do anything good enough. I can't do things right for my partner. I'm being told that I've got to do this. And when I don't do it right, then I'm told that I must be dumb. And so continuously belittling and, those kinds of behaviors. You can think of different kinds of manipulations and narcissistic abuse, and that happens whether it's a female or a male.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those, and I know of a situation where a man sought services, and he sought services because he felt he couldn't parent, because the culture from which he came, men weren't responsible for parenting, and he had full custody of his child. And he said, I don't know how to parent. So, in essence, we helped him with the parenting. We helped him develop parenting skills. But really, then what he opened up with was to also say, I want you to know that I've been charged with assault. And I also want you to know that I did not do this. I did not assault my ex.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, he was very right. He was correct. He had not. But it was, you know, what it was set up to look like, and
Mm-hmm.
what his ex had done to herself was
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, I mean, horrific. But it was interesting in how dynamics play out, and that's one of the other things for all of us to be aware of is, certain cultures, and how they view the masculine and the feminine may be okay in a certain country, but they're not okay in say a country to which they immigrate, and
Hmm.
then that creates conflict between a couple.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
know,
things that are just seen as normal and okay in certain cultures that are totally like illegal or
yes.
condemned in the they're in Canada or US or whatever. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and
yeah, that's great. Yeah, you really are outlining a lot of information for us, like all these different scenarios, and I'm sure
mhm,
you've been connected to so many of them, right? And
yeah.
so what is it? So yeah, I mean, did you even what would be helpful? I wonder if this exists. It probably does. There's probably like a checklist. I don't know. Am I being abused? Here's a checklist. Like, I don't know if there's a checklist. Or you did put some questions out there, like or you put it out there in a way where people can start to think, like, wow, am I being belittled constantly? Am I being monitored all the time? Man, am
Mhm.
I being, maybe I am being physically hit again and again, and I don't think much about it. I'm like, oh, she just got mad. She belted me. Okay, whatever. Like maybe they're minimizing it, but it is creating an impact on them at the same time, right? So it's a little blurry maybe for some of some men out there, what's abuse like. um I definitely, yeah, I could totally see that happening. I have seen that happen where they're monitoring, like even just fearful, like, oh, I think you might be cheating on me. So I'm constantly going to monitor I'm going to take your phone from you. I'm going to look at all your messages. I'm going to look through all your emails, all this stuff. And maybe nothing going on, right? Like, but it's this control. And then when they discover things they don't like, then they'll point it out. Well, I saw you're saying this and that, and that ain't right. And why you look at my stuff? Well, that doesn't matter. I was suspicious that you were doing something wrong, so I checked into it. And like this, like insane surveillance that and it happens both ways, like you said. But like, yeah, it can happen. The controller could be on either side. Who's
Absolutely.
running the control part of it, right? And
Yes.
so it is a yeah, so I like that we're bringing awareness to this. So and then the threat with the kids, yeah, like, okay, you speak up, yeah, then we'll get divorced, I'll get full custody, you won't have the kids, blah blah blah. You pay me alimony maybe too, and child support, and and all that stuff. And I could see, like, in a controller's hands, like how dangerous those opportunities are to a threat they could put down to the man. And I believe those things happen, right? I mean, I'm not crazy, am I? Those things happen from what I've heard, but is that
Well,
true?
yeah, they do happen. They do happen. I have had, men say to me that I was told that if I ever decided to leave, I would never ever see my children again.
Wow.
My children mean the world to me, so I'm staying in the relationship and sucking it up. Well, in
Mhm.
essence, yes, he is. And I take my hat off to him. But what is really sad is that in that relationship, it is not healthy. So, in essence, the children are also recipients of that, those behaviors. I
Mhm.
mean, children see, children hear, children feel, children pick it all up,
Right,
whether it's mom, whether it's dad.
right,
Yeah. So,
right.
you
Imprinting
know,
on them and affecting them. How are some of the ways it affects the children? Like, let's say you've got a guy that's in that situation, like, well, it's too much of a risk. I'm not going to even try to do anything about it because it's all too risky. And but what kind of effect does that have on the kids? What are potential, success, I don't know, successful outcomes or better outcomes if they were to take some sort of action? Like, can you walk us through that?
well, sometimes the children will take on kind of the responsibility of mom and dad or dad and mom not getting along. and
Right.
you take it on as, well, it must be my fault.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or children will become incredibly fearful, perhaps of one parent or both parents. Sometimes children will step in and attempt to save the one parent, and they
Mm-hmm.
themselves end up being abused
Yeah.
physically. And the verbal abuse flies, and verbal abuse impacts everybody differently. It's, it depends on an individual's emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
So, it depends how I I take it in as a child. That can have devastating impacts on you when you're little, because then you grow up with all sorts of uh, patterns that you have put in place to, in essence, keep yourself safe, or you thought that they were patterns to keep yourself safe. And then we do see children play out those behaviors as they get a little older, because they will, maybe, as one of their ways to cope, they will be an easy target for someone selling drugs, or they might get into a way of coping would be overeating. You know, the extra weight will keep me safe. Or they may get into alcohol,
Or sex, being sexually
or sex,
promiscuous.
or
Yeah.
anything. Yes, anything that will dull their pain.
Yeah.
You know, adults do it as well. And, so adults are role models for children. So
Mhm.
as adults, it is so, so important that we are aware of the behaviors that we are displaying. And if they're not great behaviors, then we need to check in with ourselves and say, where's that coming from? And what can
Mhm.
I do to shift it? Or
Mm.
why am I constantly triggered? I get angry. And I just want to say here, Daniel, is anger gets a bad rap. And you'll say, what are you talking about? Anger to me is at the top. It's the tip of the iceberg. It's what else is underneath here that is not being dealt with creates the anger.
Mhm.
So in
Right.
in essence, anger is a really great um, indicator that there's something going on. There's something more going on inside who the individual is.
Mhm.
And then what and how do we look at that to, what makes you angry? Oh, well, way back when I was 5 years old, so and so said this. Oh, okay, well, that was way back when. How about we look at letting that go? And when that happens, it can be as simple as that, or it can take a little bit more work. But when we're aware of who we are and what behaviors that we have to help defend ourselves, or what habits we put in place, then it's
Mhm.
amazing how we can shift those things if we're open to doing that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I'm still thinking about the guy that's being abused and what am I going to do? The kids aren't involved. I understand it's impacting them, but what do I do? Because if I lose the kids, then it's not going to be good for the kids either. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the growing issues in Canada, and I suspect it's no different in the States, is the children that are growing up without a father figure. So that is growing and growing
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
growing. Um, then what do we do about that? And we also have a growing problem, and it's more than a problem. It's gone to escalation where it's an addiction. That is, young boys addicted to porn, young men in their 20s addicted to porn. You know, that's how they are attempting to solve their problems. So how do men reach out? Where do men reach out? I mean, in Canada, there is the Canadian Centre for Men and Families, and has programs in Ontario, in Alberta, and in British Columbia, and those programs are online. So men from, you know, the whole province, say in BC, can access those programs. Because they're online, there are also men from other areas accessing those programs. And in Alberta, they run the same kind of programs as in BC, and men there too. They're all online, and men are accessing them from across the province or beyond. In Ontario, there are 4 different program locations. 3 of them run online programs, and the 4th location actually has a shelter where men and families can go to get away from the family conflict. Now, I know in the States there are programs coming forward. I know that, you know, in Washington State, there is a program for men, and I believe it's programs online. What's it called? Washington, I think, for men and boys. Maybe I can look those resources up and send them off to you, and you can put them on your podcast. Would that work? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Now I know as I mentioned earlier, in Kansas, and these are programs that were started for men and for women who are perpetrators and of domestic violence and have been charged with assault. And those programs are amazing. When I last spoke to the operators of the program, their success rate was over 80%. But what they have also done is they've created more programs, and they are known as the Family Peace Initiative. So, you know, that could be a starting point for men to call that program to see if they have additional resources that they could in essence give to the men.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Family Peace Initiative. That's great.
And I know that the Family Peace Initiative has also begun to work with teenagers, because, you know, as they say, let's work with them as teenagers, and hopefully then we won't see them as adults, and rightly so. So, I mean, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it creates all this kind of dysfunction for the kids, like you were talking about as well, and obviously that's super key as well. And so yeah, some of that dysfunction may be wanting to stay out of relationships. It could be less intimacy maybe, or it could go in a whole nother way, right? It just varies individual to individual. I know, like, in general, like, if your parents abused you, you might be more likely to abuse your kids, right?
Yes.
So there's also that dynamic. Some kids are less likely to abuse because they're abused, but I see it more the other way from everything I've seen over the years. It tends to go the other way. You tend to abuse, you know, as well, that, and some take it the other way. And there's so many other documented and undocumented effects of that. So they can't, you know, I think that's the thing. If they're thinking about their kids, I guess I would encourage, you know, I mean, I haven't been in this situation, so, you know, so I can't, you know, it's easy for me to say I get it, but still, I mean, just if we're talking to a guy about it, I'd be like, well, if it's any chance of things changing for your kids, there's no harm in just checking these things out. At least,
Mhm.
you can always decide later if you're going to really,
Yep.
you're going to do whatever they recommend, but you could at least, speak up. And something like the Family Peace Initiative, I don't think they're just going to dismiss you like the cops or something. All right, like just, oh yeah, whatever, yeah, to handle it, you're a man, and
Mhm.
sounds like you got stuff to work out with your wife. Why are you bothering us? Like, I imagine they say stuff like they can just see it happening, because there's this mindset that it's just ridiculous. You're a guy, so why we don't need to intervene. We only intervene when women are at risk. Um,
Well, yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
No, go ahead,
Now,
Daniel.
I say this for anybody that even some level of their consciousness is like, yeah, they should be able to handle it. It's no big deal. You get smacked around, you're a guy. You should be able to take that and take this abuse. It should be no big deal. I don't think most of our listeners would think that way, but let's say you did think that way. Okay, what if there's so many reasons why it's still so bad and so wrong and so obvious, but let's say one day the guy just snaps like he just can't take it anymore. Most of these guys will just keep taking it because they're never going to hit a woman because those are those type of guys, right? But what if someday they do? Like their life is at risk, and they're like, "That wow, I better get out the shotgun. I've had enough." I mean, I'm sure that's happened here and there, right? That's it. I can't take anymore, right? They take their own life, take their life, take the kids' lives, maybe even who knows? Like the
Mhm.
craziest things could happen. So I think like when
Yeah.
we just ignore, how many things like, and I think about other scenarios too, like with mental health and these mass shooters and stuff. It's like everybody knew there was a problem and no one did anything. It's like nobody did anything significant to make sure that things were taken care of. And it's like it's the most dangerous thing is just to be like, oh yeah, no, it's no big deal. No, we don't know where this is going. It could impact their wife, it could impact their kids. It is already. And it's like, don't just sweep it under the rug. Take it seriously. If you hear someone coming to you talking to you about this stuff, take it seriously. Talk about the Family Peace Initiative. Like I heard of this thing on this podcast, oh my god, and to do something. If you're in the midst of it, to do something like, okay, what can I do? Well, then she'll, because this is what I've heard from women, probably mostly in the past. I don't, I don't remember. You have to work with a lot of people. I don't remember who I've worked with, what I heard through case studies or whatever. But I just remember, there's women that are like, I'm like, well, why don't you call for help? And women are like, he's monitoring everything I do. I can't call. If I call for help, then I'm in real trouble, and it'll be the same thing with the guys. Like often they're being monitored as well. And I can't even look on my phone. I can't even look on the computer. She'll find it. Well, I don't know about that. These days you can delete it from your history. So, but this idea that they can find out, I think there's ways of, these days with the way to cover things up. I don't know. I don't think there's a need to hold back anymore. But in the old days, when it was just the phone, there's definitely like concerns with the call records or whatever. Like they're gonna find out, and like I don't think that's as much of an issue probably now. But what do you say on that?
It still can be an issue,
Mhm.
specifically where technology is concerned, especially if one of the individuals is incredibly technology savvy. They
Mhm.
they can find out whatever it is that they want.
Ah.
Daniel, one of the things that I would like to touch on when you talk, as you were talking and I'm listening to you,
Mhm. Mhm.
is men don't speak out. They speak out less than women because of all the different things that we've spoken about.
Mhm.
When men can actually open up a little bit and speak up, then begin to build a support system of perhaps other men. And
Mhm.
men, like women, also need support. And so
Mhm.
having peer support
Mhm.
and in your group of friends, if you're noticing some odd behaviors that your friend now is exhibiting, that, things just seem off with that individual.
Mm-hmm.
Ask them about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, ask, because as society, that's one of the things that really and truly we can all do more of, is be aware of what's going on. Like, and if somebody's behavior is off from what they usually are, check in. It might just be a, hey, how are things going? Or, I noticed that you're being very, very quiet. Anything going on for you? Like,
Mm.
it just create an opportunity for someone else to open up
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and be the support. And if they open up, then it's okay. So what can we do?
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things for resources, and I believe it exists in both countries, within various jurisdictions, there are programs that we call victim assistance programs
Mm-hmm.
that are there for women and men and children. They are generally attached to police departments. So that may be a place for men to check out as a
Mm-hmm.
resource.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is one place. Now, I also know, just from experience, that more and more men are reaching out to organizations that are providing services to women, just to ask where there might be resources for men.
Right.
So some men are doing that, and kudos to them. They may not find the answers that they're looking for, but at least they're reaching out.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
At least you
yeah.
give yourself a chance, guys. Don't be defeated, I guess is what my thought would be, is as hard as it is. Like me as an entrepreneur, like having successes and having a sense of like that didn't work, in business, and all the challenges you have with having a business. Even if you're making tons of money all the time, and there's lots of challenges and pressures, and oh my God, did we get that right? Did we get that right? Right? I guess so many things in life and in business and whatnot. But I'll just say, like, the biggest hazard I really feel is that you just give up, the hopelessness, and like then there's no chance anything's gonna probably ever change, and so you just want to give yourself a chance at least, and
Mhm,
you never know when things can change for the better, even if you can't see it. This is where the spiritual part comes in, talking
mhm.
about conscious guys, and most everybody's spiritual that tunes into this show. It's like,
Yeah.
source God or whatever, he'll find
Yeah.
a way. Find a way to help you if you're prayerful about it, if you take the steps, you look to get help, whether you're a man or a woman in this
Mhm.
situation, because we know half our listeners are probably women anyway. But it's like no matter what's going on, like, just give yourself a chance, and yeah, there's going to be risks either way. Well, I might get in trouble if I take this step. Well, you might get, it may get worse if you don't, so you may as well give
Well,
yourself a chance, is more where I would lean in. But that I that's just my take. Okay, guys, you decide for yourself. But yeah, that's what I would think. So
and in my experience, men need support,
mhm,
as do women. And in my experience, Daniel, I have watched, um, been very humbled by men opening up and just going blah. And it's like, wow, well, now I really understand what's been going on for them. And, you can see how they've developed behaviors over a lifetime that as an
mhm,
adult, those behaviors haven't served them in relationships.
right,
However, the men have felt, in a setting, have felt safe enough
mhm,
that they can open up and that they can share and that they won't be judged
right,
because this has happened to them.
Right.
With the society stigma, well, you're a man, deal with it. You're a man, you're strong. You're a man, this never happens to you, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
And yes, domestic violence is part of it. Family violence is part of it. But you mentioned it earlier, Daniel. Mental health is a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Addictions can be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes culture plays into it. So family conflict comes with all of that, then mixed in with perhaps emotions that are untapped emotions, or emotions that have got a real fire to them that have not been dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all sorts of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, so if you're a man and you're dealing with that, that's okay. Like, find the courage to reach out, because there are people who will support
Yeah, that's true.
you.
There exists. It's just you have to have some persistence. It may not happen the first time you reach out. You have to just realize it's not always going to happen. But it's possible right away you will too. We don't know, but you got to try. And just it reminds me of, I know this is totally a different scenario, but it does make me think about dating. Like, you don't know. I mean, you go to date someone, it's like, they're going to say yes or no to a date, let's say, or whatever, like, or how they're going to respond. You don't know, but you don't know until you ask. You don't know that if you get rejected and it goes horribly, well, give it, then, just give up and give it another try, and keep praying too is my thing. It's like,
Mhm.
keep praying, because that's much more powerful than sometimes we realize. So just keep praying for an answer to come through. And two, I mean, for the women listening that may be in these scenarios, or men in these scenarios themselves, I mean, I feel for everybody, and big time. And I dealt with many of those scenarios with women or being abused. Those did come into my office, and I understand. Like, I can't, like I said, I haven't been in that scenario. I have no idea what it's like to be in that scenario, but I've definitely been around those situations, and it's really gut wrenching, and you can't, just, I think there's a lot of blame. Like, then you blame yourself, and why did I get myself into this mess? I should have known better, or whatever. Like, all those ideas, but there's help. There is a way out. There are people that successfully move through that. It's not impossible, and I think that's something, Carol, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like your chances of success are basically zero, even if you get some help. Like, there are real success stories, isn't that right?
There are real success stories. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Daniel, the blame and the shame and the guilt,
Mm-hmm.
that keeps us stuck.
Mm-hmm.
That keeps women stuck. That keeps men stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, it is so time to stop shoulding all over yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have. Just stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And really and truly just have that courage to just open up and be a little bit vulnerable. And quite frankly, men too can be vulnerable, and it's really very okay.
Yeah.
That does not take away from being a man. Not
Right.
at all.
Right. Amen.
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, from my perspective, it makes a man more authentic in who he truly is.
Right. Right.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And, it's that continue to believe in yourself. Yes, it's have the faith
Mm-hmm.
in yourself
Mm-hmm.
that you can come through this, that you will move through it.
Mm-hmm.
And in essence, also have the courage to reach out for help.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, so many limitations in this idea of be a man. Yeah, be a man. Just sit with your emotions and all the stuff that's doing inside, and never speak up, and just deal with it on your own. Well, that's why part of the reasons why men die earlier, commit more suicide, more drug use, more alcohol abuse. That's why you sit down, watch the ball game, for 2 days in a row. We forgot the college games, then we got all these games to watch. Then we got to go work on the car. And you're saying you enjoy it. I'm sure you probably do at one level, but often we're doing a lot of other things, porn, whatever. Like we're doing all these things just to not feel what we're feeling and
yeah,
not deal with what's going on. And is that really being a man? So to speak. I don't even like that question. It's a horrible question. It's like, it's like, how's that helping you or anything? Ultimately, you can the most manly thing you could do, like to me, is like to actually feel your emotions and to deal with it. We want to say be a real man. All right, if we want to use that, I don't know if we do, but if we do, then let's be a real man and feel what we're feeling. So I've had to make that vow because even women do it too. Like they do less, I feel, but like how can I not feel what I'm feeling, right? Like, what can I do? Is there another binge to watch? A new thing on Netflix? Is there, what else can I put my teeth into? Food, whatever. And it's like,
yeah,
what if you just didn't do that and just sat and feel what you're feeling? And because there's more access to more happiness, more joy, more emotions, a fuller life when you do that. And more answers will come, when you move through the energy and the emotions. Like otherwise you just stay in your same old life. And so yeah, so that's a great point, because that's the number one thing every guy comes on and talks about is how you couldn't be vulnerable, can't cry. Boys don't cry, men don't cry. Well, they do. Okay, they do. They
well,
do.
Daniel,
Yeah.
I'm just going to stop you right there, and you can cut this out. But that whole piece around men can't cry, men aren't supposed to cry, men aren't supposed to be vulnerable, bullshit.
Yeah, right. Now we can keep that one in. Like, right. Let's keep that one in. I like that one. That we might use that as a snippet to promote the show. Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah,
Yep, absolutely. Well, we are all human, whether we are the feminine or the masculine. We all have emotions. We all have feelings.
mm-hmm.
It's time we stop allowing society
Mm-hmm.
to tell us that, golly gee, men don't cry. Golly gee, men have to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can't be vulnerable. That's all nonsense,
Mm-hmm.
because you are who you are, and show who you are will often release some of the other vent up frustrations you have, because you haven't been, you thought you couldn't release, you couldn't cry. There's nothing wrong with crying. Absolutely not. To me, crying just clears out a whole lot of stuff and makes room for more energy to come in. So let go of what society thinks you need to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Don't just play into the stereotypes. I've said this before, like half the reason sometimes I feel like, maybe it's not true, but sometimes I feel like half the reason why at times I keep even up on like different sports that I don't care about is just so that I'm connected enough when I meet a guy. I'm talking with a guy. I'm like, oh yeah, I know about that. This team did that and this happened. Just to keep the connection going. And it's like, but I also think there's some stereotype about it. I've always felt like, well, I'm not into cars. I'm not into so many things that's, a number of guys are into. And then that idea, well, you're not a real man. Then it's like, you're whatever your desires, whoever you are, like, there is no, test where you gotta like this, you gotta like that. Like, it's funny. I don't know. Maybe women do have their own things. You're not a real woman unless this or that, I suppose. I don't know. But like, okay, you love these kind of shoes, you love it, now you're a real woman or whatever. Like, I don't know, but that's a whole nother show. But like, but it's funny. There's this checklist, almost like a checklist. It feels like, to see if you're a real man. It's kind of interesting. So,
well, Daniel, maybe you might want to do a show on the new Barbie movie.
Right, I did already. You should look it up. I guess my last show I did. So yeah.
Okay, I will.
I talked about the horrors and the wonders of it. So yeah, that was a whole deal. So definitely check out my Barbie episode, everybody. I totally think it's a bunch of horse shit with a bunch of gold in it. All right, just to give you a sneak peek. If you want, you're like, oh, I want to get into that and see what he said. Check on that episode. It's just the one before this. Okay, Carol, well, we do need to wrap it up. Where can people reach out to you if they want to connect with you? I mean, you're a safe place too, right? So people could connect with you, maybe about this and the other things you do and what you offer. So feel free to share.
People can connect with me on my website, which is www.carolmetzmurray.com. Reach out. There's also there's a free gift on the website. It's called Debunking Courage. Take that and download that for yourself for a read, or you can reach out to me on through Facebook Messenger at Carol Metz Murray. I'm on LinkedIn at Carol Metz Murray as well. So you can reach out to me at any of those places. Mm-hmm. And please do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because no one needs to walk the path alone.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
No one.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Been there and understand it. Yes.
Yes. Well, take advantage of Carol as a resource. I mean, obviously, she's got lots of wisdom and knowledge in this area and many areas. She's that kind of person, and she's got a big heart of gold, and she's there to speak for the underspoken for and all that stuff. It's very obvious from all my conversations too with her, but like, that's enough. I've seen it. So so anyway, I appreciate that so much, and appreciate you coming on and taking this time to share your perspective and your expertise and whatnot, and wisdom and knowledge and guidance on this subject today. So thank you so much, Carol.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. I truly, truly appreciate our time together. And I am so thankful that I listened to the message that came through that said you need to respond to his email.
Glad you did. All right, guys.
Likewise.
Keep on listening in to your guidance, and keep on listening in here too if you're loving the groove here. Okay. All right. Till next time, everyone. Goodbye for now. Thank you for listening in to Just Two Conscious Guys Talking, where our mission is to impact millions of men ultimately to deepen their awakening by examining their consciousness of what's been unfolding for them with male stereotypes and programming that has allowed them to have opportunities to evolve during these times. It's an exciting time to bring more love to men and women around the world, and we are grateful for you tuning in today. Feel free to share this episode and keep tuning in, and also look in the show notes for a link to get notifications of future episodes. Until the next time, everyone, goodbye for now.